Hello and welcome back to AI Live, the Future of Enterprise. I'm your host, Megan Wright, editor at the AI and Intelligent Automation Network. If you've just joined us, welcome. Be sure to check out our virtual exhibit hall to speak with our partners and download free content from today's event, which you can take home in your swag bag. Next up, we're turning our focus to AI and intelligent technology for improved customer experience. Which technologies will be critical for tomorrow's organizations? And how can your organization leverage AI to improve customer engagement? Our next speaker is on a quest to uncover the true potential of artificial intelligence for the advertising industry. It's a quest he says is underpinned by his sense of confusion at the number of Terminator references where AI is concerned. Tom Ollerton is Innovation Director at We Are Social and a self-confessed tech gadget nerd. He's worked with some of the biggest and most cutting-edge brands in the world today, brands like Lego, HSBC, Domino's, and Netflix. And in this session, Tom will reveal how brands are using AI to produce better and quicker content and creative, and what that means for the future of creatives and agencies more broadly. If you've got any questions for Tom, please remember you can join us in the networking rooms after his session, where he'll be taking part in a live discussion on the future of AI and creativity. But for now, we welcome to the auditorium, Tom Ollerton.
Hi guys, it's fantastic to be here, and I hope there's lots of you watching online and that you're ready to hear all about some views on computational creativity. My name's Tom Ollerton, as you can see there, and I'm going to be talking to you about some of the insight and some of the stories that I found in the last few months that really are going to show you how the future of advertising is going to change. So yes, I'm Tom, I'm the Innovation Director at We Are Social. It's my job to encourage our clients to do more innovative work, take bigger risks, and really help them get prepared for the future of changes to the advertising industry. And so but before I'll tell you a bit about work in a minute, but firstly, I'm going to tell you a story. Just to cover off before I do that, as you'll have seen on the website, this talk is about how brands can use AI to produce better, quicker content, quicker creative, and engage customers. There's going to be some big examples from some huge companies, and I'm going to start to talk about what artificial intelligence can do for creativity and how it could work for your brand or your agency. But first off, this is a tweet by the New Scientist. I think you can see it was in June last year, and it said, artificial intelligence will be able to beat us at everything by 2060, say experts. And that was a quite innocuous tweet, nothing particularly remarkable, but certainly an opinion from the New Scientist. But what makes this tweet special is that Elon Musk responded to it. And Elon Musk said, actually, guys, it's probably closer to 2030 or 2040, in my opinion. 2060 would be a linear extrapolation, but progress is exponential. And this is amazing for a publisher that one of the kind of luminaries of AI would even respond to their posts. But what Elon Musk didn't know is that this tweet was actually written by an AI. Now, the AI that wrote this was an AI from a company called EchoBox. This is a company based in London. And what EchoBox do is use artificial intelligence to automatically create social media posts for publishers. So the New Scientists write this article about a future prediction of AI. And what EchoBox did was to actually look at which sentence in that article would be most most interesting to its audience. It would find the image, which is this one of the sort of defeated AlphaGo champion, but also you can actually see that EchoBox decided that it should be posted at 1:24 a.m., which is obviously not a peak time for the UK, but we knew they'd get the most reach in the States, and actually Elon Musk happened to be reading. So actually a lot of this content was created by artificial intelligence, to the point at which it confused one of the absolute most powerful leaders in AI, Elon Musk. So I think it's a lovely story that shows the possibility of creative artificial intelligence. So just to kind of step back a bit about us, we're a socially led creative agency. We're pretty established. For those of you who aren't in a European market, you may be less familiar with us. But there's 650 or so of us over the world, and we've been around 10 years. So a very significant player in the social media space. And what makes us different is that what we do is we come up with creative ideas inspired by an understanding of people's social behavior. So we look at how people act socially on social networks, but also outside of social. And that gives us a unique insight into the type of work we can produce for our clients. Which are these? So you probably recognize most of these brands in most markets. We're really fortunate to have these amazing clients that are willing to do amazing work and keen to experiment within innovative technology, which is where I come in. But that's enough about us. You didn't come here to hear all that, but I just wanted to give you some context about what I do and where I come from and why I'm talking about this. And about a year ago, I got really caught up with looking at all of the AI hype. As there seemed to be an artificial intelligence article every 5 minutes with a picture of the Terminator at the top talking about, oh, is a robot going to steal your job? I thought that was quite interesting, but I wasn't sure how that was relevant for advertising. So what I realized was that the way that artificial intelligence was going to impact advertising would be through automation, personalization. So over the last few months, I've been meeting lots of different startups and a lot of different technology partners who play in the automation space and the personalization space. And it's the insight that I've got from meeting those guys that have really changed the way I think about the future of advertising. But before we get into that, there's a lovely quote from Douglas Adams here. Excuse me, but I'm going to read this through. But anything that is in the world when you're born is normal and ordinary, and it's just a natural part of the way that the world works. Okay, fair enough. But then he goes on to say, anything that's invented between when you're 15 and 35 is new and exciting and revolutionary, and you could probably get a career in it, and most of us could relate to that. But finally, he says, anything that's invented after the age of 35 is against the natural order of things. And this is the sentence I want you to think about while I'm telling you this stuff, because I'm going to tell you things and you're going to go, no, that's weird. I don't like that very much. That's not how my agency works. That's not how my brand works. It's because you're probably older than 35 and it feels like it's against the natural order of things. So Douglas Adams, I thought, summarized how people respond to innovation really beautifully there. But basically, creative AI is amongst us. This slide came from Luba Elliott, and she did a research of all the different types of AI that there are in the creative space. There's some brands that you'll be able to notice, like Netflix, for example, famously use an algorithm to help them work out the length of a series, which actors should be involved, and really using technology to crunch their data to help them produce kind of better creative work. And EchoBox, you can see in the center that I just mentioned, Firedrop are an amazing startup. Basically, you can chat to a chatbot and it will build you a website based on just that conversation alone. But obviously, people like Spotify in the top left-hand side, every week, I don't know if it has it in all of your markets, but every week, it's certainly in the UK, they have something called Discover Weekly. And what Discover Weekly is a recommendation of, I think, 30 songs that you might like, which doesn't sound that remarkable. But what they do is they use an AI to understand what other people like you might like that you've not heard of. So it will look at millions of different profiles that are similar to you and work out which tracks that those other million people have that you don't, and then serve up those tracks to you. And it doesn't feel like a computer's done it. It feels like a rich experience. And for me, and this is the personal anecdote, I respond to those songs emotionally. They've done a brilliant job of hitting the spot for me to create something quite resonant there. So I'm not going to go through all of these brands, but there's a lot of companies here that are using artificial intelligence combined with human insight to produce creative work. Gartner agree with me that by this time, 20% of all business content will be authored by machines. And so what We're Social are working on is something called assisted creativity. And I mean, this is a term that's been floating around the industry for a little while now. And what makes me really excited about this, and this has come out of MIT, is something called a GAN, which stands for, wait for it, Generative Adversarial Network. And what that means is that there's two artificially intelligent systems battling it out with each other to create content. So what you're looking at here is there's the golf on the left, a train, a surfer, and then a baby. Now, all of these videos didn't start out in life as videos. They started out as photographs. So what they did was there was a photograph of a golfer that you can see on the left, and one AI would go out on the internet and find other examples of pictures of golfers and then come back and then present, well, look, this is what I think the next frame in this video will be. Now, another AI would go out on the web and find a different version, and they would argue amongst it between each other to work out what the next frame of the video would be. And what you see here is the kind of small GIF where they've approximated what a golf video might look like. And similarly with the train, they've worked out that trains always go on tracks, always go from right to left or left to right. Waves, as you see in the third image, waves tend to come from the top to the bottom, but a baby's head is almost impossible to predict because it's so random. And I'm not suggesting that anyone's content should look anything like this. Far from it. This looks awful, obviously. But if a GAN can create a video based on a photograph in 2018, what's it going to be capable of in 2020? And are we going to need to produce work in the same way that we have done historically if a GAN can produce video from just a single photograph? So that's where it's going, but this is the state that it is now, which is currently unusable. So there's a company that I know really well called Picasso Labs in the UK. And happy to make introductions to any of these companies as we go through them. And what Picasso Labs do, I don't know if you can see my cursor, I probably can. What they do is they analyze brands' different visual and video assets on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, so on. And then in the second section here, you can see that this AI can understand it's a female, the face is visible, there's a car in the background, it's in the street. And then over here on the right, it kind of writes a brief. So street style imagery featuring kids boosted the click-through rate by 18%, right? So that's amazing that this AI can go out and look at tens of thousands of images and then come back to a brand and say, look, these are the colors you should use. These are the images you should use. This is the content you should be creating based on what has worked in the past for their brand and competitor brands. So it's a fantastic bit of tech. And we did some kind of top level work for Domino's recently. And this is how Picasso Lab sees an image. So you can see on the left hand side, yes, it knows it's food, it knows it's pizza. You can see that there's onion on there, that there's a crust, and then on the right hand side, there's various other different things that it can kind of point out. There's no cutlery and so on and so forth. But then, if you dive into that data, what you can actually realise is that if there's no person in a Domino's post or any of their competitors, there's no impact on the engagement rate. However, if there's packaging involved, then there is an increase in engagement, and if there's vegetables involved, then that has a lower click-through rate. So it's absolutely fascinating that a designer, even the best designer in the world, wouldn't be able to know the truth about this data, but it gives them the opportunity to create different work based on that data. So if they want to do an image that has vegetables in it, that's up to them. That's their creative prerogative. However, what we're seeing here is the fact that you can use data and an AI analysis of that data to create work that wasn't possible before. And so there's a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch of different startups that we're partnering with or mentoring, all the way. I mean, this is a very like top line list really, but this is our process pretty much across the top: research, insight, brief, creative, production, and deployment. And there's all these interesting brands that are, startups that are coming in to disrupt each of the different stages on. So now I want to talk a little bit about what we do. So, and talk about assisted creativity in a bit more detail. So on the left-hand side, you can see we've got direct response. And then on the other side of your screen, you can see the big idea. And this is kind of loosely what We Are Social as a business do. We move from direct response to curated content, reactive, to community management, video. So it goes from quite simple to quite complex. And then the other really interesting thing to watch out for here is the way that emotions play a different role in this. So on the left-hand side, when it comes to direct response, it's very much the amygdala or your monkey brain responding to calls to action. So buy now, 20% off, sale ends soon. All these kind of phrases kind of appeal to our sense of urgency. But on the other side of the spectrum, the big idea, you've got, I don't know, Dove's the campaign for real beauty, or just do it, or any kind of, or dirt is good. Any of those kind of huge, big ideas that are global and all-encompassing for a brand is really difficult for an AI to produce, because as much as creative AI is growing, it's still quite limited to a degree. So you've seen lots of things like chatbots, which are a very weak AI. They're not really artificial intelligence. They're just kind of pretending that there's an intelligence there. And there's, on the right-hand side, there really isn't a strong AI that can come up with ideas. There isn't an AI that can do a brainstorm session for you. Certainly not yet, anyway. But a lot of the startups that I've been meeting kind of very much operate in the left-hand side. So people like Posado are a text generation specialist. And what they do is they help brands write direct response copy for their adverts. So what they do is they take the human written advert and then they produce 18 other versions of that human written advert, and then optimize the different copy lines against each other. And 98% of the time, the AI written copy will beat the human copy. Zoe Create is a fantastic little business based out in Old Street, and what they do is automatically generate social content for small businesses. So businesses that can't afford a big agency can use Zoe to auto-generate. Firedrop and Picasso Labs we've talked about, but people like JukeDeck are one of the most exciting startups in the UK, and what they do is automatically generate music for brands in a way that responds to the brand's content. So instead of spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on a track, you can get a JukeDeck's AI to create a song for you, depending on the tempo, the key, the style, the genre that you want. So once again, it's computational creativity. So we've looked at the startups, and we can see that the startups on the left-hand side of your screen are very much focused around direct response, reactive content. It's all quite automated and kind of low cognitive power, whereas where an agency like us comes in really is taking care of the big stuff, the big idea, the 360, the VR, all that kind of stuff. So, but we will see this change. We will see the startups on the left-hand side move across into the right. And the role of an agency in the next 5 to 10 years will be an agency that, with far fewer people, that sits on top of lots of different types of artificial intelligence to produce content. And a really good example of this is from Nutella. I'm assuming Nutella is fairly prominent in most markets, but it's a hazelnut chocolate brand. And what they did was they designed 7 million different packages using an AI. And what the AI did was independently create 7 million different designs. So there was no creative director there who was signing off all of the all of the designs. What they did was they signed off the algorithm that created those designs. So what they did was create parameters within which the artificial intelligence could play. So obviously there was certain shapes, certain images that wouldn't be acceptable. So there was no way of this AI could produce these type of images, but it had free reign within a certain shape spectrum and a certain color spectrum. And obviously they were limited by the size and shape of the jar itself. Massively successful, and everyone who bought a jar of Nutella had their own unique bit of content. Once again, this is a creative algorithm creating packaging in a matter of seconds. So is this better than what a human could do? Possibly not. Is it quick? Can they produce 7 million designs quicker than a human could do it? How long would it take a designer to do 7 million designs? God knows. God knows. How much of that cost? I can't imagine. So that's a really interesting use of creative AI. But I saw this really interesting research from Capgemini, and it's all quite dry and boring. But if you just look at the one at the column in the middle, it says a share of organizations implementing AI that are able to achieve the following benefits. So 74% of nearly 1,000 companies said that AI is making our organization more creative. So that's amazing, right? 74% of businesses in this survey are using AI to become more creative. However, only 37% of marketers are investing in AI. And that was by the listening tool Sysomos and research they did last year. So why is there this massive gulf between businesses at large using creative AI and marketers who aren't kind of so interested? But I think that AI really is the next frontier of advertising. And you can see on the left-hand side, we had traditional advertising, which was broadcast, that was brands talking to consumers. Then the digital age, where the consumer could interact with the brand and have a sort of bespoke experience. And then the social age, where we're a social being for the last 10 years or so, is an age where a brand can have a conversation with its audience as customers. But I think we're moving into an AI age where automation is going to change that game completely. So automation will have an impact on the way that brands broadcast. It'll have an impact on the way that brands interact, but it also will take over to a degree the conversation that brands have with their customers in social. And here's some examples of that. So I think the most impressive bit of technology that I saw last year in this space was dynamic social video. So there's a handful of providers that are doing this at the minute. But what the idea is that currently, if you make an advert or a video, what you do is you go, I'm going to create one advert and I'm going to send this out to everyone because that's all I can afford to do. Whereas what you probably rather do is create individualized content for everyone that will be resonant for each individual. But that also is not possible. But what dynamic social video does is bridge the gap between one size fits all and completely bespoke one-to-one content. So here's an example of it working. So what you can see here is a storyboard, and a storyboard is something that we would ordinarily give to our clients for them to sign off on it before we go out and make the video content. So on the left-hand side, you can see there's a car, there's hands on the wheel driving through the mountain, across the bridge, through some more mountains. Someone hands over some keys, and then we see Stephen Hawking, and then at the end there's a call to action. So fairly standard, straightforward video storyboard that we would say to our clients, do you want us to make this video? And the clients would go, yes, I want you to make this video. And then we would make it, and then we'd be like, fingers crossed, we hope this works. But what we don't have to do that anymore with dynamic social video, because what we can do is we can swap out different elements of this content depending on who is watching it on Facebook. So, for example, if they didn't speak English and want to speak in a different language, then we can serve it up in a different language. We can show different content based on the weather, different types of cars based on lifestyle, different types of safety features based on their age maybe, but most crucially, it can serve up a call to action that is based on where you are. So which would you rather have as a brand? Would you rather have generic content that's the same for everyone? Or would you have content that changes depending on who is watching it, what their lifestyle is, the kind of things they identify with in social, and where they are? So that is for you to find out. Here's another great campaign that this is from these. Oh, sorry, I've gone over that too quickly. Sorry. Can I go back? Okay, so this is for Diageo. This is a dynamic social video ad for Facebook. So in Ireland, they have something called the Gaelic Games, which is an annual sports competition for Irish sports, athletics, and so on. I'm not sure it's athletics. Don't worry about the details. So they created these zones around these different pubs, and depending on the time, day, weather, events, demographics, and location of the person watching that advert, they get served up with different adverts. So you can see Kerry versus Mayo, 3 hours at this pub. Enjoy the game with the Guinness. So fully dynamic, fully automated. Well, I'll jump over that example. Can I pause this? All right, I'll get back to that in a sec. So the thing with Diageo was that they could serve up a different advert depending on who's watching it, who they supported, what time of day it was, where they were. Absolutely brilliant, really brand new, and certainly in social. So I'm just going to come back to this example. So this is for Ribble, and you can see here on the left-hand side, it says this weekend in Birmingham, this is the weather, why don't you get out and explore? And then what it does is generate a cycling route for you from Birmingham to Burton upon Trent, 43 miles, but then also shows you a relevant product from Ribble that you can purchase. But then on the right hand side, you can see if someone is watching this video in Yorkshire, that they get a totally different experience because it's sunny, it is a different route, so it's in a different part of the country, and then actually, even though it's sunny, it's going to be a bit cold. Here's a jacket to keep you warm. So both people, it's still an advert for Ribble, it's still an advert for specific products. It's still an advert talking about the different routes, but it's responding to different weather and different location to give the viewer a completely different experience for the brands. And this content works. So for the Diageo content is 84% increase in post reactions, massive reduction in cost, and so on. And obviously, people are going to respond to a more personalised video. But going back to the Douglas Adams quote at the start, when he says, if you're over 35, you tend to reject stuff because it feels like it's against the natural order of things. Now, this is against the natural order of things. The natural order of things is for an agency to produce one big video for a brand, and then the brand buys it, and then it goes out in market. That's the natural order of things. This is against that. This is talking about creating different bits of content for different people depending on who they are, where they are, and what they're interested in. So I'm very passionate about this being the future of the way that certainly social works. And quite interestingly, Saatchi's in LA earlier last year sort of trained IBM Watson to write thousands of ads for Toyota. So it's not just theory. It's not just small cycler brands, it's drinks brands, it's automotive brands. So that's in terms of advertising. Now, another form of creative AI is the role that AI will have on our view of what makes something artisanal. So if you are into artisanal goods, if you're a bit of a hipster, you're going to love things like a story about where that product came from, who made it, was it made by a little workshop in Scotland, was the ingredients ethically sourced. Hipsters and people like that love all that stuff because it really gives them a kind of there's a story. But what if the story was the fact that an AI had produced it? So I got this whole trend actually from a company called trendwatching.com in the UK, a brilliant trend agency, friends of We Are Social. And what Intelligent X is a beer brewed by artificial intelligence. So what it does, I think you can see on the bottle is V1002 and so on and so forth. It releases a bunch of beers every month It's created by a recipe created by an AI, and then it sells that beer, and then it scans social networks to see what people are saying about that beer. So if someone says it's too strong or whatever, that will go back into the recipe. But there's also a Facebook chatbot that will actually talk to customers about whether they liked it, didn't like it, and so on and so forth. So yes, there are people that work in the factory to make sure the whole thing works together, but there's a large majority of the process, and certainly the recipe, is defined by artificial intelligence. So we saw Nutella creating labels for a product. This is a small brewery creating the actual product itself, the liquids, with artificial intelligence. And we've seen people like Ribble and Diageo and Toyota using AI to create their advertising. And I think for me that the real heroes in this space, and the company that really inspired me to investigate this area is Autodesk. So
what if you could come up with thousands of options for a single design?
It doesn't really matter. Let's just turn it off. It's a bit nauseating. But what this company do is they use billions of different data points to create physical products that a human can never create. And what you're looking at here is a chassis for a drone. And you can see how it's all misshapen and weird. No one would ever design a drone like that. But from using artificial intelligence to analyze the effectiveness of lots of other drones, it came back with this design for a drone chassis. And now they've taken this into cars. And this is amazing that they drove this car around this track like hundreds of thousands of times, and they collected billions of data points of like torque, drag, acceleration, and their creative algorithm created that design, which is completely bizarre. Then this is a part of an airplane that this creative AI designed to create something that a human just would never do, because they can't see the data in the way that an AI can. So Autodesk are taking billions of different data points to create physical products that a human could never produce, and that's going into aeroplanes that are in service. So it's a fantastic place to be involved in. So you can see here planes, cars, and chassis for drones and so on. So just to kind of finish off, really, is much like my favorite bands from the 60s that use technology to create music in new ways. I think that AI can help us produce a new form of creativity, whether that's people like Duke Deck using AI to create new forms of music, whether that's Passado to help brands write in copy, whether that's research companies like Picasso Labs that can analyze tens of thousands of images to help brands understand what should go in their images, or whether it's companies like AI Intelligent X producing beer or producing labeling or advertising, or indeed the frames of cars or even aircraft, like the guys we were just looking at before. So what does this mean for your brand? I don't know if you can remember the stat earlier that the majority of marketers are not even looking at this. So my advice would be that if you are an agency or a brand, is to reach out to these startups who are fundamentally changing the way that artificial intelligence is used alongside creativity. It's a long way off before artificial intelligence actually starts to replace humans completely in the creative space. There really isn't an algorithm out there that can produce great ideas that are better than a human can do at this point in time, but that will happen. And that will happen quicker than I think most of us are comfortable with. So that has been cashing in on computational creativity. Hopefully there will be some questions. That is my Twitter handle. Please reach out to me. I've been on there a while, so I'm more than happy to field questions there. But otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn. And thanks all for showing up. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. I know that I'll be checking out a few of the other speakers and maybe see you guys there. Thank you.
That was Tom Ollerton, Innovation Director Innovation Director at We Are Social. If you've got any questions for Tom, please join us now in the networking rooms where you can take part in a live discussion on the future of creativity and AI. Otherwise, please join my co-host Sally Fletcher back here in the auditorium shortly for our next session, which will be on augmented and virtual reality. We'll see you then.